In today's playthrough, we continue with Triplock, playing with the solo scenario in the base game, The Station. After successfully completing room 3, we are now going to move on to room 4. I went ahead and set up the game for room 4. If you'll notice, it's a little different than what we are used to, as that this is a cooperative solo game. Scenario, which means we have 2 characters that we're going to play in as, and of course it can be played solo, where I play as both at the same time, or 2 people can work on this scenario together in a true co-op fashion. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the room 4 card and see what we have in store. There was a loud cacophony of grinding gears and groaning metal as the suspended machines were released and fell to the ground, mere yards away, making a racket that had all of them covering their ears. In the commotion, the cryptanalyst disappeared. The stranger waded through the pile of twisted metal to a latch in the floor that was now unlocked. She led them down yet another ladder, this one noticeably worse shape than the last. They were now underground, in what looked to be a cave. In the very center sat a small box, wired into the floor. The stranger eyed the container with obvious familiarity. Inside this box is the kind of technology that only 1,000 lives and a face can buy. She paused. But it will take more than one to open. If we succeed, then the fun begins. Judging by her tone, she was wearing a smile behind the mask. And as you can see from that story and the lore we have going on, they are already giving us the... Let me see if I can. There we go. Come on. There we go. Oh. Here we go. Definitely giving us the go for the co-op. And so now let's go ahead and take a look at our 2 characters that we have chosen for this mission. First up is Elizabeth Watkins, the anarchist. Very interesting. From her west side balcony, high above Newtown, Elizabeth Watkins watched the smoke belching from the chimneys on the street. If she squinted, she could vaguely make out the silhouette of her childhood home in Old Town. The woman could see everything from up here, and it was her favorite spot to enjoy a quality cigarette. As she saw it, the tobacco smoke filling her lungs couldn't possibly be any worse than the air of New London. Besides, the nicotine buzz helped keep her on her toes. Being plucked from Old Town at the age of 16 gave a woman perspective. Elizabeth knew about the plight of the commoner. She knew that in Old Town, each day was about nothing more than survival. She knew how lucky she was, and it made her sick to her stomach. The captains patrolling the streets found her beauty enchanting and raved about her. Word of her mesmerizing eyes and divine figure made its way to Parliament, where a young Senator Watkins demanded a quiet and quick marriage. It happened so quickly and quietly, she was fairly certain the rest of Parliament didn't even know she was from Old Town. They certainly didn't suspect foul play after Senator Watkins' recent death. And why should they? Elizabeth was so good at blending in the politicians and elites of the royal company that everyone just assumed she belonged. Wine had been a vice that Senator Watkins loved more than anything. His nightly drunken fits revealed things about the city she had never known. Horrible things, terrifying things, on occasion, useful things. Parliament's chief security engineer had developed a locksmith manual of sorts for the locks of New London. A few under-the-table deals had earned the senator a copy. His assumption that a former resident of Old Town would be disinterested and unable to read such a tome was his biggest mistake. The poisoned wine took him quickly. Nobody but Dr. Lucius Eliot even gave the cause of death a second thought. Just another in a long line of senator deaths from alcohol-related complications. Elizabeth suspected Eliot knew better, but he was too reserved. She was convinced he'd never say a thing. The doctors of Newtown were treated with much less respect than those living in the luxury of Royal Heights. The locksmith's manual was now hers. After a few months of studying, there'd be nowhere off limits to her in New London Heights, or the entire city. In his final moments of his life, Senator was delirious. He ranted, screamed even, about protecting the train station. Elizabeth peered over the balcony and lifted the binoculars to her eyes. The train station did have a mysterious way about it, with plenty of locks to practice on. Lowering the binoculars, she spotted a lovely wooden lock box, adorned with switches and keyholes, sitting on the balcony next to her cigarette. How in the world? On the balcony, a time and a place. The listed time was 2 a.m. The place was the train station. Very interesting. So I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder if we're going to find anything out interesting about the train station. Looks like her husband even warned, protect the train station. And that's exactly where we're at, doing nefarious things. Very interesting. Our second character. Most of the folks in New London had an air of paranoia about them. Adeline Foley took that paranoia and the social awkwardness that came with it to a whole new level. There were rumors she had been a sharpshooter in the war. Well, that seemed at odds with her persona. Perhaps she had even a few too many things to integrate back into society. Nobody seemed to have a better explanation for her bumbling behavior. She couldn't look a soul in the eye. She couldn't walk a block without falling down. Conversation was out of the question. And there was that hat. It looked ridiculous. Nobody could take her seriously. Perhaps this is what made her such a great gun for hire. She dealt in the business of shadows and hitmen, only talking to the few surviving members of her platoon. Most who came back had no use for traditional means of making a living, and even less use for the government. They had been trained to kill and spy their whole lives, so there was no sense stopping now. So, Adeline joined them. Was it an act? It was hard to say. Her military training allowed her access to most any building. Nobody on the planet suspected she could have killed a fly. She'd go stumbling through the door of her ordered hit, and her target would assume she was just a commoner with a mental illness who had lost her way. They never stopped to think about all the locks she had to break to make it that far. Not that they had the time. They were dead before they could even think more than, what's that on her head? As she prepared to leave the home of her latest, now late, target one night, Adeline's gaze stopped on a sturdy box of unique construction sitting on the victim's nightstand. Excuse me. Nightstand. It was wooden and well made. Like the box, she kept her military medals in. Very out of the place for a simple train conductor. Turning the box over and almost dropping it in the process, she noticed something embossed in gold on the bottom. Adeline smiled and gave an awkward giggle. Ambrosia Lane was close. And with her mark already pushing daisies, she had a few hours to kill. All right. So those are our characters. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at their special abilities. We will probably definitely need to take advantage of these in the game. You may place your skill bead on one of your diagrams. When completing that diagram, the spring mechanism can be used as if it were a gear and vice versa. Interesting. So now if we take a quick reminder look, the spring and the gear, they are the same mechanism back and forth. So that means if we get something for her, we'll be able to take advantage of that by being able to place the bead here. We won't have to do the flip mechanism. So for this mechanism, it is kind of like a free flip. That could potentially be very useful. Let's go ahead and take a look at Adeline's special and that wonderful hat. There we are. Wonderful hat. You may place or advance your skill bead on Adeline one position per turn. When the bead reaches the third position, you may either perform any one action or discard any diagram. Wow. Okay. Now this right here is probably one of my favorite skills in the entire game. As you can see here, they even have the 1, 2, 3. So we would start here and just slowly work our way down. So every third round, we're going to get a free action of our choosing. That is pretty cool. Now, of course, since we will be using our beads for both the characters, and I'm pretty sure we do not need to actually calculate points in this round, I have also set up, instead of having it on points side, I have it on round side, and we will use Adeline's key to mark the round we are in and move it along that way. So that is why I have that there. I have our 2 cheat sheet cards right here in the center. Now let's go ahead and check out the room and actually look at the goals and the room rules. Goal: using 2 characters, complete all 4 sequences of 2 diagrams in 8 rounds or fewer, or room wins. Each character must fully complete their own diagrams. Okay, so the very first step we'll do is we'll finish up the round by having each character draw their diagram. Now, they just have to complete their diagram. So we'll have to see if maybe we want to get a couple extras or how we might want to try to play that off. Room rules. Co-op setup, which again is what we've already talked about and what I have going on here. Room has no turn. Okay, that's interesting. So Elizabeth will go, then Adeline will go and turn over and start again. Interesting. Anytime one sequence of a diagram is completed, rotate it to another sequence not yet completed. Keeping it in play, remember your progress. Okay, so now in this one, as we complete sequences, we're also going to have to make sure we remember which ones we have already completed. Interesting. Now, of course, we're going to play the base mode, but let's go ahead and just take a look at what challenge mode would potentially be. Complete it in 6 rounds, so it's in 6 instead of 8. Also, anytime a stack is flipped or swapped, it must be flipped again. Characters may use the blank skill to prevent room from doing this. Okay, that would be extremely difficult, because the only way you'd be able to flip a stack is if you also then first use your skill bead to do the reset to be able to keep the room from being able to keep you from flipping that stack. Well, that is evil. That's definitely a challenge. But like I said, we're going to be playing just regular, the regular form. So we want to win within 8 rounds, and we have to completely finish our 2 diagrams. So let's go ahead and first take a look at Elizabeth's, draw on our first card, and see where we want to start. Okay. So we have code left to right, 2 points. Collection, just the 1. The code there, and then that. I am guessing that we are probably going to start off looking for these. So that means we are probably going to want to start with these, because we're probably going to probably want to try to solve this, or we're probably going to be disarming. That's it. As many as we can to start off, to make things a little easier, to get things going. So hopefully we'll be able to finish this first, because this will probably be one of the later things, either of these 2 that we'll do. So let's start with her. This one, start this route, because that's probably what we're going to want to try to accomplish first. So we'll go ahead and stick that there. And then as we get more diagrams, we'll just move it. If we get more diagrams, and kind of go that way, we'll just kind of move them. And now let's get Adrian's. And then hers is a little more difficult, where she actually needs 2. And then a trip. Swap any 2 stands. And remember, this you have to do. So when we get this, we'll have to do that. And let's go ahead. Let's just take a look at see how close we are. Not very close. So we might want to try to get a different diagram card for one of our 2 characters, to try to see if we can't match up better some of their things, to try to make it easier for us to solve. But I think we will stick with our strategy and work on the easier ones first. So we will start with probably one of these 2. Swap any 2 stacks, and or flip any 1 stack. Interesting. This I don't know if I'm going to do potentially, hopefully, that early in the game. We'll want to save that special ability maybe for later. So let's keep with this one as well. Keep with that one. There we go. So now we have the board set up. And let's get started. For Elizabeth, because we don't really know what we're doing, and technically she doesn't even have any springs or gears, which is another reason to try to get rid of this diagram, because it doesn't help her in any way with her ability. So with her action, we are definitely going to want to place it on the action, and I will use this side for Elizabeth and this side for Adeline, just in case things come up and it is needed. Though most likely she will use, so here, let's change that. Here, this will be Elizabeth, this will be Adeline, because most likely I'm going to use hers every time. So we'll place her first action there. So next round we will get a extra die roll. Let's go ahead and roll her initial die. And so we are going for disarm and new diagram is what our main want is. So most likely if we get anything else, we're probably going to trade him in for that. And we have an alter diagram, which in this one doesn't do us any good. And we have the peak, which actually normally would be pretty good to try to get an idea of what we have going on thus far. But I think trying to get her a new diagram to work on is more useful right now than because either way, there's only one die that we need, because we don't really need this one at all. So trading the 2 in for the one that we're most concerned with, I think, is the better strategy with her. So we will trade these in for the disarm and draw new diagram. And we will go ahead and just go with the first one. And we got some gears, very potentially useful. And there we go. And now let's go ahead and draw her new diagram card. Move you over. And with this one, the collection is 2 gear locks. So we're heading in the right direction for that. Just a spring. Now we're getting somewhere because she does have advantage of the spring gear. And then the spring pull keypad. And let's go ahead and take a look at our other card and see how close we are. Oh, we may have gotten very lucky, guys, because look at that. Common, and then these can technically almost be, it's almost like we got the same card. This is pretty awesome because for Elizabeth, this can be either one. So this is almost like a gear for her. That is pretty awesome. We got pretty lucky there. And then here. So let's see. And with this being the code that we just unlocked, it is not this. So there's no point in pulling that one out first. We know we're going to need to do some more disarms because we do need to collect stuff. Because it's the only way to get these. So we will have to definitely do that a few more times, possibly next round. Let's go ahead and leave this one up. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get another gear lock. But we do have, especially now that we got one, the odds are actually going to be more in our favor to get an explosion. But we will see. And then, so there's the first one that we got. Not that it really matters because nothing's going to change everything. But it is good to keep them in correct order. And according to the rules, all we have to do is completely finish one diagram. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the one you started with. So I think this is the one we're actually going to want to be going for. All right, so now let's go on to Adeline's turn. And we'll roll for her. And with her, we will probably be doing the same thing, hoping for a disarm. But either way, probably trading it in for that. And oh my dear Lord, guys, we just rolled the exact same thing that we rolled previously. That is nuts. So yes, we will definitely be trading these in. Same scenario going on. We'll just keep moving down the line. And we will take this one. And it's the explosion. And we got lucky. Because that is the one that she needs. So we'll see what these are at some point. So here we have set hers off to the side. And we definitely want to use her skill bead on her extra action. And that will end her turn. So now we will move down to round 2 and go back to Elizabeth. We'll roll. And so now this one gives us the flip and the altar. So we actually do need that for her. Wait, that's not the one we're doing anymore. And of course, this is the one that we do not need at all. So we kind of want to swap these at some point, probably. Because we want to get that. Because if this is the one that we do not need, that means these three are the one that we need. That does us no good. That is already what we need. So flipping this does us no good. Flipping this, of course, we don't want to do. We actually need this, and we don't know what these are, so flipping them does us no good. So let's just go ahead and trade them in and disarm another one and see what we can do. So we will trade these in, disarm, and we'll take this one. Let's see, guys, what did we get? And it's the gear lock. That is so awesome. All right, here we go. And we have the gear, which is not what she needs, but with her ability, we will be able to use it as such. So our next turn will be, we'll go ahead and do the skill turn next. And so we will move her skill bead over to here. That immediately gives us another action. So we will go ahead and take that. And here we go. This one is the check, flip, rotate is what we got. Now this one's risky. We rolled it. Let's go ahead and do it. Because this, we don't know what this is, but it's really an easy way to... Oh, do we want to do that? Because we really don't want this coming over here. We really want to flip those first. Because if we move this here, we'll then definitely have to do that again. And we don't want to flip that because that is the side. So we will just not use him. Because we can't, yeah, because we traded those in. It's done. So we have used her skill. And on our last, because remember we have the three actions, 3 turns that we can take in each one. And that's your roll, your skill, and then you're solving a diagram. So we will go ahead and solve the first diagram here, which is the collect. So we'll turn these in to do that. So that one is now done. And we will go ahead and flip that there to that side. So in our next round, we will play her skill bead here. We've actually used for her skill. And we will get that one done. So we are moving definitely in the right direction for her. And that means this is going to be a push or pull. So if we can rotate these, that's even going to put those in the right order. She is looking pretty. She's looking pretty good. We're doing pretty good here with her. So now we got to remember that we have completed her collect. And that is her last turn. So now let's go on to Adeline's turn. And the first thing we will do with her is move her skill bead down to number 2. Do her skill turn. Next, we will do our roll action. And all right, now this one, now we're getting into some interesting territory. Because this, okay, wait. We might actually want to use this. Here, let's take a look at this here. Swap any 2 stacks or flip any 1 stack. Okay. Let us alter the diagram. We will use this one. Let's see, how do we want to do this? Because we can swap these two now with this one. We can alter it. See, because once we do that, once we solve, see if we were to solve this, and actually we'll be able to, we could flip it to this one, which we can actually solve right now. Hey, wait a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If we alter this. Okay, yes. All right, this is where we had it. We will use our alter card. We will alter it to this side there. So now our next, then we will, because remember we got to complete the roll first. So before we solve a diagram, we want to complete this. So now we will swap 2. So now we have kind of in our order, because we want to eventually get the hidden swap peak whatever change. There we go. So now that's going to push things over and move them into the order that we want. So that's good. We altered, we rotated. So now we did her skill. So now we will do its solve diagram. So we will see there and there. It is solved. Very awesome. So now as part of the room, we will change it. Let's just go ahead and change to this one. And you can solve as many diagrams as you want during a round. So we will go ahead and just solve this one as well. There he is. It's kind of a waste, kind of wasting this special ability because I don't really know where anything is. However, what it is going to allow us to do is this one is not really needed, not really used for us in any way. So having it there does us no good. However, we might need this fail-safe because she still needs a gear lock, and I don't know where that is. So I might need to draw that diagram and try to get that and hopefully and see what it is. So I need some fail-safes up that I can draw and hopefully get. So there, now we solved that one. So let's go ahead and flip it here. So now we have solved this one and this one. We keep with our strategy of working on simplest first. So she is moving pretty simply. And we will now move to round 3 and back over to Elizabeth's turn. So the first thing let's go ahead and do is our die roll, just to see what we get, what we have in store for us. Most likely what we are going to want to do is trade these in for that hidden peak, the hidden action, because that is definitely the direction that we want to go. And we got, oh dear Lord. Okay, this is kind of interesting. We got our peak that we wanted, but we also got the disarm. If only we could have gotten that a little sooner, because I really don't want to do this for her, because she doesn't need it anymore, and I don't want to potentially pull the needed gear lock. So let's just go ahead and, trade it in. It's the same thing. We're going to trade these in for this one, or we're going to just do this one and discard that die roll. Either way, it all works. We will peek at our hidden, flip it, and rotate them around. So let's go ahead and see what we have going. The other beauty of this is it's going to let us see what this fail-safe is, so we know if we need to want to work at disarming this one for Adrian or Adeline, or if we need to work on a different one. So this actually is going to help us out a bunch. And we have the push, which is pretty awesome because now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it, remember? And that's going to put it to the pull, which is exactly what we need. All right, what is this? And it's an explosion. Oh, that is not what we need. We do not want an explosion. Oh, which is pretty cool because now if we know this is an explosion, our odds of this one not being an explosion is a little higher because when we flip it, we now know that this is the pull we need, and hopefully our odds are greater that this is going to be a clear lock. We don't know what it is. We haven't seen it. But we at least know that that is an explosion, and we've already seen one explosion, so that's 2, and then 2 gear locks. So now we're back into 50-50 range of this being what we need. So that's very awesome. So now we'll go ahead and do the final step, and that is remove there like that. Now let's go ahead and use her skill, and we will place her skill bead on a diagram of choice. We'll go ahead and place it here on this one, which means for the diagram, we can do either way for the gear or the spring. So now finally on her turn, we will solve this diagram. We got that right there. And we will go ahead and move it to this side, leaving her skill bead on the diagram, which that I would assume gets to stay, because normally this diagram would go into your win, but since it's, you know, part of the room, the diagram says you just rotate it. We have placed a skill bead on the diagram, which is what it says. It says on the diagram, not on the sequence. So I assume we get to leave it there. And since we can solve multiple diagrams in one round, let's go ahead and solve this one as well. This got to be left to right. So now we know this is our spring gear. This one should be our pull now because we did the flip. We saw that it was push, flipped it. So now it should be pull. Sure enough, it is. The one thing I can never remember is if I'm allowed to look at this guy. I don't think I can, so I won't. I'll just press my luck on my next round. But so that is now solved. So now we will turn. So all we have left for her is this last one. And they can be in any order. So here we have spring, pull, combination. Let's go. Let's do it, guys. Solve this one as well. Spring, pull, code. That one is done. All 4 of hers have been solved. Now that we have done all 4, let's go ahead and move it into our solved area. Very cool. So she the game. Now we have to do is finish up her. We have to do her collection, and we have to solve her thing. Now she is still in the game, so she can help us with her turns and maybe moving things around or you know, altering. Because remember, when you alter, you can alter anybody's diagram. That's one of the things. Usually you use it on your opponent to mess with their game. But if we need to, we can let her alter it for us. If this very next round, if pulling this doesn't get us what we need, we can let her possibly alter it for us and alter that and solve, because this is exactly what we need to solve that. So, very awesome. So we'll go ahead and place her skill bead back here. Her turn is over. Now we'll go to Adeline's turn, and we will roll our die. What we are hoping for is for her, the exact roll from Elizabeth is what we want this roll. Happened in the past, happened in the last one, we got the exact same roll. Let's see if we can do it again, because what we want to do is we want to disarm this one to get that fail safe, and then we want to be able to solve diagrams or what have you, or alter things. So because here she'll be able to move her next and have any skill. So if we need to, we'll be able to do this twice. So let's go ahead. Let's go there. And we got, oh, look at that. Okay, we have the peek at that and the alter diagram. So what we are going to do, here it is, guys. We are going to alter the diagram, alter hers. So we're going to alter it to that way. So remember, we've already finished these two for her. So now we will alter it, and we have this exact thing and this exact pattern, gear combination, that. This we will not do, so we will end our roll action. We will now move over to our so solving a dilemma, just that one thing. So let's go ahead and move for our second, move it to our skill. Now we're on her third. We can do any action we want. The action that we will do, it will be the disarm. So we will go ahead and disarm this one. Let's see how lucky we are, guys. And it's the gear lock. There we go. We just won this game, guys. All right, so now that finishes hers. So the very first thing that we will do is solve this one, solve this diagram. So now we have gear, code, pull, solved. We will now go with the rooms thing, and once it is solved, alter this to a different diagram. So we go there, collect, and we have the gear and the explosion collected, solved, both characters done. Very cool. Did it in 3 rounds. I've never done it that quickly. I'll tell you right now, that was awesome. I don't think this could have gone any better for us. And I was worried. My first initial rolls had me a little suspect on how things were going to go. And if we pay attention, we will go back to our card, and there is a success. Go to Chip Theory Games, station win for the epilogue. In preparation of my hopeful win, I already went and I printed this guy. Let's go ahead and see what there is. With all mechanisms in their correct order, there was a satisfying click that came from the box, and a small button lit up on the keypad. Before anyone could do the honors of pressing it, voices bouncing off the corridor walls revealed that they were no longer alone in the station. For the first time since her confident appearance outside the building, the stranger paused, exposing the fact that this was something she had not planned on. Charlie spotted the hesitation and immediately took charge. That panel over there is connected to the main steam line and boiler. Flip the right switch to turn on the emergency venting. Scandling steam should slow them down a bit. Scalding steam should slow them down a bit, she said with a satisfying smile. She was just getting started. I assume we will want another route for our escape, and preferably one that puts us on the other side of the station, she assumed while running her hand along the reddish pipe that looked much newer than the others. This was installed just last year. There's bound to be temporary wooden stairways running along at least till it reached rail 3. Then we have some options. I'd recommend continuing upward and leaving through the coal chute doors. As she looked back at the room, Charlie realized everyone, including the stranger, was staring at her. She'd been fairly quiet up to this point, so no one knew what her stomping ground, that this was her stomping ground. Any favor she could have gained with this group might turn into support for her revolution when all was over. So she kept it friendly. "Stick close. I know things," she said playfully, as she gave a little curtsy to the group. As if on cue, the box gave a loud electric pop that sent sparks in all directions. Everyone hit the floor with heads covered before questions could form on people's lips. The stranger was back in action, as if no pause had even taken place. Casually walking up to the box, she pressed the blinking button. Wow, that was awesome. That was a great playthrough. Loved every minute. Loved the game. I hope this helps you to determine if this is the kind of game that you would be interested in, and possibly picking it up for yourself. Of course, this will not be our final playthrough for Triplock, the station. We are going to go back and redo Room 1. Why, you may ask? Because people have created this. And it is a different solo variant, which we will go through next. And instead of using dice to roll for your actions, you have cards. So I will go ahead and finish up making my set of cards, cutting them out, and I'll sleeve these guys. And we will redo the Room 1 and the new solo variant that uses cards instead of dice. This changes the strategy in the game because you have a little more idea of what's coming. You're not relied on a random roll. So that is a very interesting change to the way the game is going. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. Since we've gone through the first 5 characters for that playthrough, and to get an idea of what our last character is and to be able to read her backstory, we will go ahead and pick Charlie, which is, again, very interesting because as we have been playing through, we started off, early on playing with Doc, and then she just happened to talk about Doc. We are now in the train station. Our last character, made mention that, the train station was something to be wary of, protect the train station, told by her late husband right at the end, right before she came here. And now we are getting ready to go on into Room 1 again in the new solo variant. And how did it end? With Charlie stepping up, knowing where they were going and leading the way. So it all seems kind of work for what we are doing. Very awesome. Hope to see you guys in our next playthrough of Triplock the Station, where we go back to Room 1 playing the solo variant. You can find those if you want to set up and get ready yourself. You can find those files at Board Game Geeks under the Triplock game. Of course, on that video, I will post a link to where you can get these. But until then, I hope you enjoyed. Once again, I hope it helped you to determine if this was something you would be interested in. And I hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.